Take two. Alright, welcome back to the Connor Guasti YouTube channel. I know what you're thinking. Did he clean the garage? Yes, I did clean the garage. Well, sort of clean. It could be a lot better, but it is what it is. I have a little bit more space, room for activities, that sort of thing. It's going to be great. But we're going to talk about suspension and tires. You can see I've already kind of drawn some nice little diagrams. If you can't tell, this is a Tesla truck. And this is like a 60s something with zero aerodynamic efficiency right here in this area. I don't know what those are. We got the car up in the air so we can use this kind of as for some visuals. But I have this list, this handy dandy list of things that I want to talk about to kind of like, we're going to go over this. I've had a couple of people ask me about suspension, you know, how to set up the suspension, which the answer to that question is I don't know, because I don't know. As you can see, that's track adjustments. Right here is number 11 and number 12, going faster than a 1/260 foot. Those are the last two things on the list because I haven't done them yet successfully on a regular basis where I can repeat the process. So those are things that I want to learn that are here on the last two things of the list. So we're going to wait until probably August to where we can learn those things. But for the rest of the list, we're going to go over tire types, like slicks versus radials. Kind of what's the difference? What are the applications for each? Okay, so first, what's apparent about these two is that this is very old, and you would be right in assuming that. This just wheel style and how yucky old these look. These are a set of radials. These are Mickey Thompson, which is the brand name. ET Street Radial Pros. That's the actual tire within the brand. This is a slick. This is a tubed slick, which means just like a bicycle tire when you were a little kid, there's a tube inside of this that's so that you can run really low tire pressure without it, you know, without it coming off of the tire bead. And these are also screwed in, which means the tire is actually screwed into the wheel so that it doesn't come off or it doesn't slip. Kind of like bead locks, but before bead locks. Immediately the differences between these two, you can see that there's kind of this one kind of has like a harsh, sharper edge to it right here, where the contact patch would actually be on the road. This is one kind of like telltale identification for a slick, is how the contact patch matches, versus this one is a nice smooth round transition. That's one, you know, telltale sign between a radial and a slick. When would you want to use either a radial or a slick? So knowing the differences between how they react, radials are instant hook. You can't spin a radial and go fast. If you start to spin it, it's over. You just kind of put it on the trailer and, you know, go home. Might as well, because if you spin a radial, unless you got a really fast car up against a slow car, you're not winning if you spin a radial. A slick, however, these are kind of it's optimal to actually spin them a little bit. It keeps the tire in a nice round shape, and that's how they really get a lot of their good traction. I'll clip in a video right now. See in this slow-mo footage how it's like really it's stretching that sidewall, and you're going to see all those wrinkles, and it's spinning the tire. The tire is actually spinning faster than the car is going and faster than it's moving over the top of the ground. That's the optimal, that's kind of like the optimal way that a slick works, is it's slipping and spinning and grabbing a little bit at a time of the actual track surface. These are also good for, and you see them, not that specifically this brand, but you'll see a lot of guys using Hoosier slicks. That's also a brand name competitor. Mickey Thompson is Hoosier. A lot of the guys that run, like you'll see on 1320 video, that run street racing events, they're all running slicks. Slicks are really good for bad prep surfaces, no prep surfaces. like that nature, because a radial tire is an instant hook. You can't spin this. The amount of power that you apply to this radial is ideally the maximum amount of power that you can apply to the surface that you're racing on before the tire spins. Instantly hooks. It's not overpowering the surface. It's going the exact speed that the vehicle is traveling forward is the speed that the ground is traveling underneath the car. It is not overpowering it. That's how you apply power to a radial car versus. So think of it like this one is just a little bit more forgiving as far as what you can get away with overpowering a surface. You're not gonna lose a race by spinning a slick. That's actually kind of how they do best. They have really soft sidewalls. They're very forgiving, which also makes them good for stick shift cars. Stick shift or 6-speed manual shifting cars are very rough on the drivetrain. Those engagement and disengagement of the power back and forth as you shift gears is really hard on all of your driveline components. Everything that attaches the engine to the tires, all of the gears, the axles, suspension parts, stick shift launching is really hard on a car just in general, which is why it's good to have a very nice, soft, forgiving, squishy, slick tire. That's what you want to run for stick shift cars. Now there are some exceptions where they have the drag racing specific style slipper clutches, which, you know, I won't get too much into that because 6-speed isn't really my world. Essentially what a slipper clutch does is it allows you to dump the clutch, so you lift your foot off the clutch immediately, and it progressively engages the clutch. It doesn't snap to and engage right away. It slips. That's why they call it a slipper clutch. It's a controlled slip that gets you out of, you know, that first 60 feet to, you know, whatever, 120 feet. So you'll see guys that have slipper clutches are able to run a radial because it's not an immediate positive engagement of a clutch, which is why they can run radials and still hook them. That's why you'll see a lot of stick shift cars run a slick, auto cars run a radial. These are not good on the street. Like I said, if you spin that, the second you spin it, you overpower it. You have to completely come out of the power almost to recover from a spin on a radial, because as soon as it starts spinning, it's going to go basically straight to the rev limiter. These are going to bite as they spin, which is what makes them really good for street racing. Not that I condone street racing, I'm just saying that if you were to street race, a slick is the tire that you would want to use. Now that we understand kind of like the differences between a slick and a radial, remember one is softer, more forgiving, you want to spin it a little bit, that's the way that it likes to operate. The other one is a little harder, a little less forgiving, instant hookup. Those are the two different kinds. Stick shift cars use slicks, auto cars use radials, with a few exceptions. I'll go ahead and preface this now. I am not an expert by any means. I'm just trying to share the knowledge that I have, the little bit of knowledge that I have about these topics. Hopefully it makes somebody else's life easier. You see all the time people asking like, what's the right kind of tire to buy? What kind of suspension parts should I buy? What coilover should I get? Well, there's not a right answer. It just really depends. What you need to do is understand the decision that you're making and make the choice that's best for you. So I'm just trying to provide that information to you guys. That way you can make the best choice for yourself. So I have this little handy dandy drawing that I've done. Make sure that this is a dry erase. Yep, okay. So on this side here, we have a slick car. And this side we have a radial car. I run radial. We'll put this, that way you can remember what I run. I run a radial. I used to run a slick back in the day when my car was a 6-speed car. There you go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I haven't drove a 6-speed car in a long time. 1, 3, 5, 2, 4. Numbers are hard. Okay, so this is an auto car. We'll do also A for auto. Stick shift car. This is what I used to be. Now, how you want to apply power to a stick shift car. This is the ground right here. Here's our front tire and our rear tire. This is our very not aerodynamically efficient car that I've drawn. Can you imagine right here? It would be like a sail. Anyways, so this is the front tire, this is the rear tire, this is the kind of like the axle. and then this is going to be the center of the front wheel right here. So the way that you want to kind of apply, and this is where you hear this, is people say like, you really want that car to squat. Well, on a slick car, yes, you do. You sure do. What you want to do is transfer the weight of the whole car on launch kind of back and down right here onto the tire, which is going to smush the tire into the ground, and you're gonna get those wrinkles right here, and you're gonna really see a lot of separation up here in the front as the car kind of rocks back. And then we won't get into tire shake. Well, actually, I'll show you. This is what tire shake looks like. This is when you're going too fast for the tire to recover from how much you're deforming it, and it kind of turns into a square. So you could probably see from this video, I'm going to try to find one that I can clip in, where the tire is being overpowered too much, it's slipping too much, it's not able to recover fast enough by the time that it comes full rotation, one rotation around, and one of the side is flat by the time it gets to the ground again, because it hasn't fully recovered yet. This is what's called in a slick car is tire shake, or when you square up a tire, this is what happens when you overpower a slick car. Now with a radial car, if you overpower it, all it does is spins. You can still get tire shake, but it's not going to be, I think, in my personal opinion, it won't be as bad as a slick car, just because there's a way more play. It's way softer. It's much more like a water balloon, if you will, on a slick. But for a radial, now remember, this is how you want to transfer the weight of the car. You're going to really see the front end lift up, the back end squat down on top of the tire, and that's how a slick car looks going down track. A radial is, I'm going to say the exact opposite, using that loosely. When I say the exact opposite, what I'm talking about is in this area right here. On a radial car, what you want your car to do as soon as you let off of the trans brake button is you want it to, the car is going to lift up off of the tire and nose over the front. And what that causes is right here in this area is what's called separation. But as far as bar angles go, on a radial car, okay, so this is going to kind of be this diagram here. Obviously, this is going to be the bottom of the car, and it's spread out here for just the visual portion. This is going to be like this. This is the center of gravity, which is going to be kind of like behind the engine, probably like on a Coyote car. I know it's right about water pump height, and on an LS, I think it's right where the cam and the water pump. Coyote and LS is probably about the same location, so I'm going to assume that this is where the center of gravity is going to be here. Now, so my car is lower than factory, with a factory upper control arm mount, a factory upper control arm bracket. So this is going to kind of be like the situation that I'm in right here, where I don't have enough upper control arm angle. And what's happening now is, if you imagine, so if we draw an imaginary line right there to right here, this intersect point is going to be kind of like our push point. Now what happens when I let off of the trans brake is the car is going to come down, and because of the bar angles, the rear end of the car is going to come down, and the suspension the rear end is going to kind of suck up into the body. Just because of the bar angles, when I let go of the trans brake, the way that the suspension sets, the way that it wants to swing when it's under load, is it's going to want to compress here into this point, which even if I can hook up, the problem with that is now I'm pushing below this center of gravity, which I can't hook up. But the problem is I'm pushing below my center of gravity, which is going to cause the car to wheelie. The car is going to want to wheelie. Even if I can hook, naturally, if I make enough power, theoretically, this is what's going to happen with the bar angles set the way that they are. Now, we'll go back here, erase all of this, erase that, erase this. Okay, now if you make this change right here, where here's your center of gravity, and you change your bar angles, this is just a really crude representation here, but if you change your examples and you draw a line through and a line through, an imaginary line right here, Your push point's now going to be over the top of your center of gravity, which is going to want to nose the car over, which is going to, and it's also when you let off the trans brake, that's when you're going to start, when your bar angles are set up like this is when you're going to start seeing the separation that you want, the body coming up, the tire going down into the track, crushing the sidewall, and lifting the body up off of the tire and getting it nosed over. This is when I talk about I'm out of upper control arm angle. This is the issue that I'm talking about right here in this area. I don't have enough adjustability to make this correction to where it is and that's also where separation comes from, is how much upper control arm angle you have. So if you have, like I have, like say this is like a factory mount right here. Get rid of this one. Boop. Okay, so factory mount, you can see that this is a little bit downslope. This is a factory mount. The upper control arm is only going to go down until it's parallel to the ground. That's as much rotation as you're going to get out of the upper control arm when you're driving it on the road, when it's still on the ground. So what you need to do is this mount on top of the axle stays the same right here, and you move this mount down. Now look how much suspension travel you see this, how much more, just by moving this bar down a little bit, you're getting that much more room for separation, which is what we're gonna, when Jason gets up here, this is what we're gonna be shooting for, is making this change, which this right here is right here on the car, which is, don't mind the dirty oil, but that is this bar, this upper control arm right here that connects the top of the rear end to the body. Once that gets to parallel to the ground, that bar that connects this point to that point, once it's parallel, it's maxed out. It's not going to separate anymore. When I bought this upper control arm mount from UPR a long time back, they didn't offer the adjustable upper mounts. It was like 5 years ago. So what we're doing essentially is we're going to be adding, oh goodness. We're going to be adding bolt holes below this one right here. It's going to go, we're going to add one bolt hole and another bolt hole. And then that's going to change this bar angle for at ride height. That's going to be sitting a lot. It's going to be a lot steeper when I say I need more angle. This is what I'm talking about right here. And that's what's going to allow the rear end to separate a lot more. And then also, obviously I can't do that with the factory shocks. That's what I have, those aftermarket the lot longer stroke shocks. From factory, these are the shocks over here. These are Viking, double adjustable Vikings. They go up to the body up there. I'm not getting rid of the mounts. We're gonna take these out, and I'm gonna be putting the coilovers up in this general area up in here. A couple of things that I want to cover here first is the difference between a bush, like polyurethane bushing, is going to be kind of something like this. This is like a plastic or a rubberized bushing that separates metal from metal, and this will be used. My car is all solid spherical bushings, where I'll show you right here. Here's one. This is a solid spherical bushing, and this is the lower control arm right here. So right here you can see that there is no rubber. Those are solid spherical. Those are solid spherical ends, which are those are on the road. Those are the street. Those are pretty harsh and pretty loud, uncomfortable. They're not really used in a lot of factory applications because of that. Now an example. Here's another one up here. You can see. This one, you can see it has a rubber right here, is rubber, and then that separates metal from metal, and that quiets down the ride a lot, and it makes it a lot more comfortable, a lot less harsh. The things you have to think about when you are deciding between whether or not you're going to get a solid bushing, a solid spherical bushing, or a polyurethane bushing is, what are you going to primarily use the car for? If your answer is like me and the primary use of the car is going to be racing, you want no polyurethane, or you don't want that as any places. You want solid spherical bushings. And if you're going to be driving it on the street the vast majority of the time, maybe like some sporty driving, or you just kind of want to upgrade the stock suspension, polyurethane upgrades or a harder polyurethane than factory is going to be what you want to do. Now, and if you're going to be kind of like a street track, you know, street track warrior type deal, where they have options where one side is solid spherical and the other side is polyurethane, and that's going to, you know, and that really kind of like bridges the gap between, you don't want to go full race car, but you still want some of the performance, but without all of the discomfort. So that's kind of like all those things go into play. You know, all those things play into what kind of suspension parts are you going to buy. All solid spherical for racing, or just a factory upgrade or factory replacement, which is going to be bushings on both sides of the control arms. That's going to keep the noise, vibration, and harshness of the ride down, but you're going to lose some performance in that. And that's simple because if you take your finger, or you take this screwdriver and your hand is the bushing, and you put this in here, I can flex this. I can flex it, and the same thing happens on the car. With a rubber bushing with a metal bolt going through the middle of it, the car is going to be able to flex it. And flexing in the suspension, unwanted flexing in the suspension, is what causes disconnect in handling, or degraded performance, is because of this right here, this deformation of a polyurethane or a plastic or a rubber bushing with a metal bolt inside of it. You're going to lose a lot of performance. Now, replace my hand with with metal. You're not going to be able to metal inside of metal for a very close tolerances. You're not going to be able to flex it. You can't. It's unless you're going to bend the material, which is going to be, your car is not going to be able to do that. Which is where you gain that performance. You're not going to get any unwanted flex. Now, the problem with that, with not having that flex in there, is you're going to be giving up a lot of ride comfort, a lot of how quiet the ride is, because you're not going to have metal on metal. Just imagine this is solid spherical bushings moving around. You're going to hear this, and then this is bushing. This is polyurethane bushings. I mean, that's an exact representation of what it sounds like. Or not what it sounds like, but why you would go polyurethane versus all solid spherical, where solid spherical, I can't deform this. Bushings and I can deform this, I can move it. And so can your car. But for the sake of simplicity and seeing exactly suspension components and kind of like how they function with each other, I'm going to use my Traxxas Desert Racer. Now, this has a pretty realistic driving characteristics, and it has a lot of the same suspension components that a drag car would have. It actually has a triangulated 4-link suspension. This is a lower control arm right here, and this is a lower control arm right here. This one right here is an upper control arm, and then if we flip it over, you can see right here that this link right here is connected to this arm, which is connected to a metal rod that goes straight across to the other side. And this side of the axle over here is connected to this side of the axle over here. This would be similar to what's called on a race car an anti-roll bar, or on like a street car would be a sway bar. That keeps the car from rocking back and forth like this for too long. When you crush this side of the suspension right here, it's going to lift this arm up, which is going to use torsional force on this bar. Torsional is this way, like if you're twisting something, that's what torsional force is. So this side is going to go down over here, which is going to twist this rod counterclockwise. You can see it's flexing because it is just a little tiny rod, and it's going to use this other side to kind of counter it. Like a lot of cars going down track and they're wheeling like with one side way up in the air like this. That's because they don't have a really strong anti-roll bar, or a sway bar is not even connected at all. It's because the rear end is able to flex one side more than the other side. Now, if you connect them together really with a really heavy duty torsion bar or anti-roll bar or sway bar, then what the car is not going to be able to roll, because the torsional strength of this bar won't let one side of the suspension move separately from the other side. It'll make them move together, and then you'll get a perfect straight up in the air wheelie versus a car that wheelies with one up in the air like this. Can't see, get a light. You can see exactly like the RC car, I have this anti-roll bar right here that goes from, it has arm on this side and an arm on that side over there with a torsional bar in the middle. And it's connected to the axle right here. This one's just kind of upside down. From the RC car, this bar was up on top. On this one, it's down on the bottom, but same exact idea. This is gonna be full loose on compression, which is all the way soft, is the other way to say that. And then also the same, we'll do full loose on rebound. So here, I'm gonna be able to just compress this, and it's going in. If I go all the way tight with this, and then I'm gonna leave this all the way loose. So all the way tight, I really have to press really hard to get it to move a little tight, like you have to push a lot. Versus this, remember, rebound, which is this shot coming back out, was all the way loose. That's really easy to pull out. It wants to come out pretty easily. So that's compression and rebound. Couldn't tell by listening to me talk. We're getting now into the section that I don't understand, which is track day adjustments and going fast. I sort of know when to make what adjustments, but not really. Which that's why I said that in portion of the list is the section that I am not really familiar with. So that's what we're going to be working towards here in the future. The next like month and a half, I'm going to be trying to get really good at recognizing when it's time to do what suspension changes. I hope this video was quasi informative. I had a couple people ask me for this information. I am not an expert by any means. As a matter of fact, I actually ask a lot of people a lot of questions, and I am actually flying somebody up here to come teach me this information better. But like I said, I had some people ask if I would cover like kind of suspension stuff and tire choices, and I from the beginning of this channel I said, if there's stuff that you guys want to learn, I'll teach you what I know. And if I'm wrong, if I said something that was wrong or you didn't quite agree with, go ahead and put it in the comments. That way everybody can see it, and I can learn something too. But that'll kind of wrap up today's video. Pending any questions from the Peanut Gallery? Nobody? Okay, great. That's it for today's video. I'll see you guys next time. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next upload.